Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Tuesday evening, the 11th of February 2020. Tonight's topic: if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That is I wouldn't say it's a cliche, but it is a saying that we often hear almost as much as gold is money. And both of those statements tie into a perception of value. Now, what I'm going to say isn't investment advice. It's really just a way of looking at things. And I think a lot of people have been conditioned to look at things perhaps to their detriment by saying things like gold is money, silver is money, just insisting that current valuations over the last 10, 15 years are, quote, out of whack, and somehow that gains made that don't fit your definition of value or traditional definitions of value, therefore somehow aren't real. So one of the things we hear a lot is, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And the idea is simple. If the item of value is not within your possession, you really cannot achieve or retain the value of that item. Now, let's go back to, it's somewhat of an archaic way of looking things, because 300-400 years ago, the only way you could become rich and the only way you had any wealth, you had to physically own it. That is a fact. And the richest people in the world were landowners. And generally, the land was under their control. They lived on the land. All of their valuables were on the land, their livestock, their cattle, any precious metals, any jewelry they might have owned, any supplies were all in garrisons or in sheds on their property. And the land itself had the value. And those were the richest people, the landowners, the lords of the manor, so to speak. Along with banking came the idea that you could be rich and hold assets without actually physically holding them or being present in their presence. And that's when you started to have people owning things around the world, like the Rothschilds and the banks, the Medicis, where they weren't there to own it, but they owned it via contract. They owned it via paper promise, and they became very wealthy that way. And what's interesting about wealth and not having it in front of you is you could be a lot richer if you're willing to give up the idea of having all your wealth in your hot little hands. Because if you have wealth in digital form or all over the world through this, it's not really new, through banking and financialization of assets, you can buy whatever assets you want to hold in front of you. But most people don't. Or it's happening that the average person today views owning assets as a liability. So for example, buying condos, buying houses, buying cars, buying DVDs, buying CDs have been replaced with digital offerings or temporary offerings. So for example, I did a poll the other day and I asked the question, just let's look at CDs, LPs, and so on. And let's put aside, most people are not that sophisticated or even think they're sophisticated enough to hear the difference between a digital download, a cassette, or different types of digital media. Let's just talk about your casual user of music or consumer of music. And I just asked this question for your music listening. Would you rather pay for unlimited streaming, digital downloads that you own, or CDs, LPs, or cassettes? And you can see more than 50% would rather not have the CDs, the LPs, or the cassettes. And part of the reason is it's not economical to own CDs, LPs, or cassettes, even if they sound better. If you can buy a streaming device, a streaming subscription for $10, $15 a month. Well, you can only buy a CD or an LP a month for that price. So your choices are much more limited when you decide to hold the physical asset in CDs. We see the same thing with DVDs. People don't buy them anymore when you can rent them via subscription services like Netflix. Also, people used to aspire to own a vacation home or even a home. And a lot of that's being replaced with Airbnb and other places where you can go and you can actually get a more diverse vacation experience without having to buy that one bedroom condo on the water in Florida. Same with people buying cars. They're down unless they can, people are instead are choosing to take mass transit or even Ubers. And now that brings us into things like gold and Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin you don't own, gold you can own, and a lot of people who sell gold will say, if you're going to buy gold, don't buy GLD, don't trade contracts, don't have your gold stored by a third party, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Well, there is a limit, I believe, to how much gold or silver or any physical asset you can or would desire to hold in your physical possession. Now, I am not against holding physical assets. What I am against is hoarding physical assets to the point where you believe that that is the only way to attain wealth or to preserve wealth. Because the richest people on earth do not have, and they're billionaires, do not have $1 billion worth of assets at their homes. There's just no way they could have it, and there's no way they'd want to have that. And it wouldn't make any sense to have that, because wealth comes in more forms than just gold and silver. And you see a lot of people, this idea of digital assets being worth something is alien to people who believe in the concept, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But it's one that you have to pay attention to, because some of your most valuable assets today are in digital form and you don't hold them. But does that mean they're not valuable? You may not, you still own them, and your ownership may be at risk by a third party or hacking. But the idea that you can only have value recognized by having it in front of you like Gollum, that doesn't make much sense to me. There is value. Now, what does make sense to me, and there's a difference between wealth preservation and insurance. Now, if you have a small stash of physical items, not your entire collection, for emergencies, those are valuable. But it doesn't make sense to me to own, if you had the money, boxes of silver or boxes of gold at your house. That to me doesn't make any sense, because why would you want to have it there? Well, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Well, that's not necessarily true. You see, that assumes that there's going to be, that you can't trust anything. Now, we know that fraud is the exception and not the rule. It doesn't make sense to put all your money with Bernie Madoff, obviously, because he can run off with it. He made off. It's funny, that's what his name was, made off with your money. But if you have money at different accounts, bank accounts, Swiss, but whatever it is, the chances of all of them going under or all of them defrauding you are pretty remote. It's probably more likely if you had all of your assets at your house that your house would burn down, or you would get robbed, or you would lose them or something, than it would be that if you had your assets dispersed, like the Rothschilds, across the globe. Now, most of us, including myself, are not rich enough to have money all over the world. But the idea that you have to have hoards at your home doesn't make any sense to me. In fact, I think that is, along with gold is money, period, if you don't own it, you don't hold it, or what's actually preventing people from gaining wealth. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people say, but why are central banks buying gold? Central banks are buying gold. They know what's coming. Okay, you want to take that line of reasoning? Well, central banks also own unicorn stocks. In fact, I reported on this a few years ago. Central banks own more stocks, or at least the Swiss National Bank does, and they are the 7th largest gold holding central bank. They own more NASDAQ stocks than they do gold in value. They have over $100 billion worth, $100 billion worth of stocks. They only own $47 billion worth of gold. That is, see, when people once you become infected with the gold virus, and all you think of is gold is money, and if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and central banks are buying gold, that is all I need to know. Your mind becomes warped to other forms of value. Yes, gold can provide a hedge. Gold can be a bit of insurance. But just saying you're going to own gold or you're just going to own silver and you're going to stack it in your garage, that to me is playing into the hands of people who are selling you that narrative, either to sell you the physical item or because they've got a newsletter to sell and they're going to sell you stories about China to crush the dollar and gold back yuan and central banks are buying gold and you should too. These are all sales pitches because, and again, this is not investment advice, but look at Tesla. Let's take a look at Tesla. And I'm not advocating Tesla. I'm not advocating a valuation model for Tesla, but the Swiss National Bank owns $327 million worth of Tesla. Now, that Tesla they've owned for years. Look at that price. It was $188 just 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's $774 a share. The Swiss National Bank, as of their most recent filing with the Securities Exchange Commission, owns a whopping 553 shares of Tesla. The Swiss National Bank doesn't just own gold because it knows what's coming and it's trying to protect itself. Well, okay, maybe. Yes, gold will protect it, but it has more in stocks than it does in gold. And again, I'm not advocating you should hold more in stocks than you hold in gold, or you should hold gold in this form or that form, or in your garage, or in a Swiss vault, or as a GLD. I'm not here to tell you that. What I'm saying is that when people repeat these cliches, the cliche only tells you part of the story. Central banks are buying gold. Well, they're also buying every other asset on the planet, including unicorn stocks, Tesla stock. Now, Tesla is the marvel for everyone because it makes no money. It's worth more than all the other car companies combined. It's gone up tenfold in the last few years. And it has no profit. And now, that doesn't make any sense, but a lot of things don't make sense. There are ways of looking at things that are alien to how you look at them. Because to most people who bought silver in the last 10 years, they can't understand why the price of silver is where it is. And they just, it's manipulation, and they just repeat the Achilles heel of the banking system and gold-silver ratio and game changers and just a bunch of gibberish to justify that the valuation for silver is not there. Now, even if you are correct, let's say you are 100% correct that the only reason that silver is down is because JP Morgan, that's what, right? You do a video on JP Morgan and silver, you're going to get thousands of views because there's a cottage industry around trashing JP Morgan and its supposed buying of silver eagles and all kinds of other nonsense. Yes, JP Morgan manipulates the gold and silver markets, and they're in trouble for that, and they manipulated all the other markets, including the LIBOR markets, the bond markets. All markets are manipulated. But let's say silver and gold markets are particularly manipulated to the downside. In fact, they're government-sanctioned entities to smash the price of silver. And you know that. You're convinced of that. Now, I'm not saying I'm convinced of that. I'm saying there's some evidence to indicate that clearly they manipulate the markets. There's not evidence that JP Morgan has been buying silver for 10 years and storing it so they can eventually make out when they let the price rise. That's a bit fantastical. But let's say you believe that. But you know that other assets are going to rise. Why would you waste your time then with silver? It doesn't make any sense. Only because you've binge watched, in my mind, these gold and silver pumper videos convincing you that gold is money, period, and JP Morgan is keeping the price down, and one day over the rainbow, this is all going to happen, and silver is set to skyrocket. And who's telling you these stories? People who have gold and silver newsletters that they sell to you, or they're also selling you physical precious metals. And they'll insist to you that this is crazy, what's happening in the world, and the only safe haven in the world is gold and silver, and the only way to accumulate wealth is through purchasing their newsletter and listening to their rants and or buying precious metals. And again, I've never been against buying precious metals. I'm not against having physical items. I own CDs. It's not like I'm against books or physical items. But also, you have to realize, I believe, that the world has gone away from owning assets, physical assets. Books have been replaced to a certain extent by digital readers, handheld devices. Music clearly is being consumed in digital form, and money. It's going to happen. It seems, you can say gold is money, period. It is inconvenient, and actually it's almost impossible to spend physical gold or silver. In fact, even with money, change, people want to get rid of it. That's why there's those Coinstar machines. No one wants to be physically burdened by pennies, quarters, nickels, dimes. Even though the intrinsic value of that metal is worth more than the paper, they'd rather have paper. Or they'd rather have the money just deposited in their bank account or on their app so they can spend it. Now, that may seem alien to you. You may think these people don't understand. They don't understand value. But markets are based on people who don't understand. They're not based on people's understanding. They're based on people's behavior. And people behave in a way such that they choose convenience. And if that's what they choose, and they want to spend they'd rather have digital illusions of wealth or whatever on their phone to spend, that makes that phone app and whatever is on that valuable. And if what's on that phone app is some type of digital cryptocurrency, well, then that cryptocurrency has value, even though it doesn't have any intrinsic value, because somebody can't store it in their house or in their garage and look at it from time to time. Now, yes, it makes sense that if there were some type of event where you couldn't use your phone, or the electricity went down, or you lost your internet connection, your phone, then you would not have access to your digital assets. Well, that's why you have insurance, and you do have cash, and you do have physical assets. But the question is, what is, and I don't know the answer to this, but it seems that if you watch these videos, if you don't hold it, you don't own it, the answer should be 100%. You should have all of the argument is you should have all of your wealth in physical assets, and they should all be under your control in a shed in your backyard. Well, the richest people on earth certainly didn't get rich doing that, and the richest people in the world certainly don't stay rich that way. But I think that that's one technique, I believe, these cliches to get you continuing to come back, buying gold and silver. And also, it's very powerful because it sounds logical, and then you repeat it to all your friends. You get mad when you hear people like me say, maybe this doesn't make sense. And it's a very powerful marketing technique to just keep parroting these phrases. Gold is money, period. Silver is money. Digital illusions of wealth. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And everyone else is just crazy. Well, I'd like to be one of the crazy people who bought Tesla just a year ago when it was $200-300, and now it's $770. Or one of the crazy people who bought Bitcoin when it was $2,000, $3,000, $100, and now it's $10,000. Again, the reason these things are that, there's many reasons why these assets have gone up in price. You could say it's manipulation. You can blame the Fed. But if you know all this, then why don't you follow along it? Why don't you go along with it if you know why these things are going higher, either because of intervention? Look, if the Swiss National Bank is buying Tesla, the question is, why wouldn't you? Well, it doesn't have the valuation. Well, what difference does it make? I mean, it doesn't have the revenue. It doesn't have the profits. That's not what's driving the price, though. Obviously, the price of Tesla doesn't go up because of price earnings. It goes up because supply demand. There's enough money looking to buy it than are looking to sell it. More money is looking to buy it than looking to sell it. Well, you could say, well, what about if people return to valuation models? All right, well, then you switch your investment way of looking at things. But that's not where we're headed. We are moving towards, at least it appears to me, and I want to get your thoughts at the end here. We're coming down to the end of this mini rant here, is, do you believe that people are viewing digital assets as more valuable than physical assets? That physical assets, in a way, are a bit of a liability. Look at China. When people, they see all that infrastructure that they built and they say that's an asset. I don't think that's an asset. When you have bridges to nowhere and buildings that no one's living in, they say, well, they can always move into them when things get bad. and the economy collapses, they have all those assets. Well, what good are they, and what are they going to do with them? They have to be maintained. No one lives in them. There's no revenue coming in from them. They borrowed money to build them. Why are they valuable? Well, it's the same thing with owning stuff. When you have stuff, and let's say all your wealth is within your confines of your home, well, then you can't leave your home because it's unprotected. But if your wealth is in an account somewhere or on your phone, you can go wherever you want, and your wealth goes with you. So let me know what you think. Let's see what's going on in the comments section. All right. Phil McCain. Mugs are money. You don't own it unless you hold it by the handle. That is true. Mugs are real wealth. And mugs can hold wealth, too. Hello, everyone, says Coins AZ. But hold it tight or you drop it and it breaks. And Phil McCain learned, he dropped one of his Smaulgld mugs the other day. But we did put another one in the mail for him. Phil McCain says, hoard mugs, mug hoards. Silver Stacker for Life says, hi, everyone. If you put an ounce of liquor in a mug, Phil says, and drink it, then you have a mug shot. That's true. Chrono Bear. JP Morgan is hoarding colloidal silver because it's the only known Wu Flu core. Yep, read it on Zero Hedge. 100% credible. Well, Zero Hedge has been banned from Twitter, which is somewhat ridiculous, but not somewhat, it actually is. Okay, Mint Marcus, I believe the debt is unsustainable for quite a while. At this point, I'm not sure. I'm going to stop before I read the rest of the comment. Here's the other thing I've realized. Everything is unsustainable that is organic. All economic systems, all countries, all governments, and all human beings, all manner of life is unsustainable. That's just the life cycle. The question is your timing. If you keep saying something is unsustainable, like valuations, well, if you know that valuations, like for example, we're in a bubble. Well, it's a 12-year bubble. You could have profited for 12 years. Knowing that it's going to end one day doesn't mean that for 12 years you didn't make money. As they say, make hay when the sun is shining. You don't just say, well, the sun's going to go down one day. The sun's going to go down later in the day, so we better not make any hay. It's unsustainable, that sunshine. At this point, I'm not sure, says Mint Mark. What is the unsustainable point? 25, 35, 50 trillion. Those numbers are beyond comprehension. That's right. We don't know. But of course, the newsletter writers and the gold pumpers and the silver pumper sellers, they'll tell you they know. Get your gold, silver now. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. I mean, if you don't buy from us, it's not worth anything. Don't buy GLD because we read the prospectus. They don't have the gold. Here's the thing. What if they don't have the gold and you can't get the gold? But what if the price stays the same? That illusion doesn't matter. I mean, that doesn't matter at all. If you buy GLD, I don't know what the price is. Let's say it's $100. Let's say it's just the price is, it's not, but say gold is $1,500 an ounce. And let's say at any given time, GLD has 80%, maybe 90%, but always has some, but it never has 100% of the gold. It says it has, but it trades as if it does. And you can always sell your GLD shares for that price. Well, what difference does it make? It really doesn't. But we know they don't have the gold, but the market doesn't care, and that's oil that really matters when you're looking at valuation. How does the market value that bit of information? Well, the market knows that, first of all, you cannot redeem shares of GLD except in extreme circumstances, and then they generally try to tell you not to. And people are willing to trust the valuation of GLD that it's based on the amount of gold it has, even if it can be proven that they don't have that full amount. All right. Pablo says, I'll buy Tesla. If I buy Tesla, it will drop. See, that's another good point that, which is why I don't give investment advice and why I don't make recommendations. Absolutely. You could start to say to yourself, wow, that made sense tonight. Why don't I just buy stuff that I normally think doesn't make any sense? Why don't I just buy these unicorns? Why don't I not hold anything? Why don't I just do what everyone else does? Everyone else is making money. And the minute you do that, all of a sudden the world comes to its senses and starts to believe exactly what you've been saying for 15 years. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Gold is money, period. So you can never, who knows? But the idea that you can be wrong for 15 years and insist that you're right, you're just early, I'm not quite sure that's smart either. All right, Phil says, platinum and palladium are up. Platinum and palladium are often placed in thin layers on ceramic, so ceramic mugs should rise too. Yes. Fritz Bender, Smaulgld, how'd you come up with your channel name? Is there a cryptic message in it? No. It's actually, I like the AUL, like tall, small, Paul, right? So instead of small, it's just Smaulgld. I don't even know why I said it, but then I just figure you can write it out like that. It looked kind of cool with the S. Maybe I could have picked a better name, but I picked it almost 10 years ago, so I'm kind of stuck with it. I kind of like it. It looks kind of cool. You're looking at it now on the screen there, Smaulgld. The mugs look really nice with the big S, the Smaulgld. So, CoinsAZ, what is your explanation of relationship of money to currency? See, that's another Mike Baloney thing that really is irrelevant. Oh, see, gold is money. Dollar bills are just currency. Who cares? What's the value of a dollar? What's the value of gold? And first of all, you can argue I had this debate with what's his name? The guy who does the Morgan Report, Jim Morgan, whatever his name is. Anyway, smart guy, believes in silver. We get along, we talk once in a while, and he believes that silver is money. Okay, well, that hasn't done anything for its value, so I don't understand why it matters whether it's money or not. But then I go one step further. I can argue it's not money. Because one of the definitions of money is that it's a medium of exchange, it's a unit of account, it's widely accepted. Silver is none of those. Used to be, so I call it dormant money. So what difference does it make whether having the discussion, oh, they don't understand that gold is money and everything else is just currency. Who cares? A painting isn't money. Platinum isn't money. Palladium isn't money. Tesla isn't money. But they're worth a lot of money, or whatever you want to call it. So this idea, people think they learned something. It's money. It's not just, that's just currency. Who cares? What you really are interested in is getting rich, or retaining value, or getting wealthy, or getting a return on your money. But having some sort of self-smug pride that it's not really money, it's just currency. Okay, well, I'll take 1,000 units of currency over 10 units of money any day, because then I can buy 1,000 units of money with my currency. See, the whole thing is circular, and it's kind of foolish to even make the argument. But again, it's one of those things that makes the people who produce that kind of content sound smart, and you feel like as you're losing currency, not money, because you still have your gold, that you really know better. I mean, you don't. And in fact, the moron who bought Tesla, okay, he's a moron. He doesn't know the difference between money and currency, but he's richer than you are. So why? I don't get it, but I guess that comforts people to think they know something. Fritz Bender, some of these guys give you no new info, just the same jumping over and over. It's not just those guys. It's the thousands of channels that parrot that stuff. And they get thousands of views, and people just want to binge watch this stuff. They want to get reinforcement that dollar collapse, game over, game changer, China to crush the dollar, gold back yuan, game changer, Sun Tzu. That's the other thing. Why would you want to believe that China is better than where you live? I don't even get that. Schiff was on that for the longest time, going off about the advantages of the Chinese economy. And he's actually one that talks about, he says that real estate is not a good investment because it costs money. And to a certain extent, he's true. A home that you own is not really going to make you any money. It's just going to be something you have to maintain. And after you pay your taxes and so on, the only time you're going to make money is if it price appreciates and you sell it. And then you got to pay taxes on the gain. So generally, a home is an asset. But he was also in favor of the idea of what they were doing in China, building assets, which is building all those bridges to nowhere and all of those skyscrapers, and somehow saying that makes them productive. All right, let's see. J.B. Wentworth, Ray DeLeo's portfolio for September 2019 included 11 million shares of gold. I was surprised since many YouTube channels hosts say no gold. Yeah, so someone owns gold, or a central bank owns gold, and that's the only story people tell you, as if that's the only asset that anyone wants, should want, or ever wanted. And I just pointed out today, and I'll show you again, the Swiss National Bank owns all manner of stocks. Most recent report shows them owning 423,553 shares of Tesla, which today are worth $327 million, but they also own $100 billion worth of other shares. And I've been covering this for a few years now. Does that mean because they own Tesla or Twitter or Workday or Zillow or Zynga or Facebook or Amazon or Netflix that you should buy it? No. So they own gold. Should you buy it because they own it? No. But if you're pumping gold, all you got to do is point to Ray Dalio. He's buying gold, so you should be buying gold too. Swiss National Bank has 1,040 tons of gold, so you should buy gold. Same thing. Bernie should be near you today. Do you think he'll drop by for the countdown? Well, the 1% in this country got all the money, and I think that tonight I'm going to win the primary, even though Buddha, whatever his name is, thinks that he's going to win, but I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. All right, AZ. Coins home is an asset you can lose a lot of wealth and worth depending on numerous factors. That's true. The money pit's a classic example of a home that can lose value. There is no such thing as an asset that you're guaranteed to, quote, make money on. Although, and again, I think actually gold is one of the, clearly has a history if you have it and have had it for 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, 300 years. It has stood the test of time. There's no doubt about that. Silver, not so much, but definitely gold. JB Wentworth, I meant to refer to that ETF GLD. Yes, JB Wentworth. GLD, the reason that institutions buy GLD is they're not allowed to hold physical gold, most of them. Or if they are, then they have to go to all types of arrangements to make it in line with the regulations, with the storage. What GLD does, or all these ETFs, is they make it easy for institutions and individuals to buy the underlying asset without having to take delivery of it. And most people do not want to take delivery. Like all these COMEX traders, they're going to stand for delivery. No, they're not. They don't want the asset. They want the paper profit. If they want to go out and buy gold, they'll go out and broker gold. They'll go and they'll buy pork bellies if they want them. They're just trading the price. And an institutional investor doesn't want to stockpile gold. You go to your investment advisor, he doesn't have gold in a vault behind him. That's not what he does. Now, there may be investment advisors that believe that they're going to hold assets for you. Well, go ahead. But the advantage of these ETFs are, there's a Bitcoin ETF, GBTC. It's not an ETF. It's called GBTC. It's run by Grayscale Investment. They have the Bitcoin in cold storage. It's insured, and you can trade it on your Schwab or your Apple or your Fidelity account, and you can own Bitcoin without having to take possession of it, but you don't have to. And it makes even more sense because there's nothing you can do with having the Bitcoin physical keys in your possession anyway. So why not own it in, well, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. That's the same as if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Well, okay. But it's the same thing, because if all you're doing is you want gold to go higher, you want Bitcoin to go higher, and you're ultimately going to sell it. So in between the time you hold it and the time you sell it, the only difference is you can't see it and you can't hold your gold if it's at GLD, but you could still make the same profit. What difference does it make? It's actually easier. You can sell it whenever you want. And it's the same with Bitcoin. If you have it in a trust and they're holding it, they're insuring it, then why do you have to have the keys that you could lose or have stolen or hacked? You have it over there. That is attractive to many people. I know that people who believe in if you don't hold it, you don't own it, or not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Okay, that's just one way of looking at things. But there are other ways, and I think that more people are unburdening themselves with, and I think it's a generational thing, with physical assets and physical custody of assets. All right, let's see if we've got any other questions here or comments. Let's put up the, there we go, the fundraising page. I do want to thank people who have stuck with Smaulgld for years. I've had patrons and PayPal and Subscribestar members for years now. Now, some people come and go, which is understandable. Personal circumstances, and they apologetic when they do leave, and you don't have to apologize for changing jobs or saving money and not having money to send to Smaulgld. That it's very appreciated that you were ever even a Smaulgld subscriber in the first place. So as long as you continue to listen, I do appreciate that. Fritz says, are central banks buying Bitcoin? I don't think so. And I used to think that would be a ridiculous concept, but now I'm not so sure, given that central banks buy Tesla, they buy Zynga, they buy unicorn stocks. Why wouldn't they buy Bitcoin, Litecoin? Why wouldn't they buy any of this stuff? The world is a different, I mean, it's not what it used to be. It used to be that central banks were supposedly prudent and QE, and the financial crisis, I believe, is permanently, not permanently, but has changed things at least for decades. How banks run, how economies are valued, GDP is valued, everything. And it's driving a lot of people nuts because it's not what you would think is traditional valuation. P's are sky high compared to 30 years ago. Price earnings ratios, I mean. Digital assets, which would be considered just thin air, worthless, are worth billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. Bitcoin is worth like $160 billion. And it's essentially an invention of, it's a glorified computer game. But people believe you're actually transmitting value when you transmit a Bitcoin, and there's miners willing to expend enormous sums of money on equipment and electricity in order to produce or verify the transactions in order to get the Bitcoin reward. Essentially, in reality, they're getting nothing, but they're not getting nothing. They're getting the value, $10,000 a Bitcoin. All right. Yeah, remember getting 7% interest on your little savings book. Yeah, I remember I used to have a savings book, a little account, and you bring it to the bank and they'd run the interest for you. If you had like $40, you'd get a few bucks. I mean, today, if you have $40, they'd close your account. First, they take $25 out of it for having under $100, and then they close your account. Yeah, the world has changed, and to insist that what value used to be value, there's such an idea as eternal value, you know, because the Roman soldier worked for a denarius, you should too. I mean, a silver denarius. It's kind of silly, but it sounds good, and it sells silver and gold and newsletters. And all right, unless I got any more questions, since Bernie is in town, he'll do the countdown tonight.
So you people are all consumed with money and talking about gold and silver and things like that. But the thing is that
Bernie, just do the countdown. There's a reason I haven't had you on the show.
That's right, because you're not paying me a living wage. And if you don't pay me at least $15 an hour, I am not going to do the show anymore.
Bernie, I could care less if you ever come back.
Okay, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1%, 0. Have a good night, and on to South Carolina, where I'm going to win the primary.
All right, Bernie, good luck. Good night.